Hi and welcome to The Curve Weekly, the podcast that keeps you up to date with all the money, business and stock market tea.
Everyone should experience first class at least once in their lives, and Annie shouldn't miss out just because she can't afford it. Help me, I'm poor.
So this is a bit of a longer episode, this one. We've dressed up, so we thought we'd make the most of our costumes. We're doing a bit of an Olympic special.
Yes, and also we didn't do a Race in the Curve last week. There's been lots going on, but there was so much research done for this episode. We thought the Curve Weekly is normally short. It's normally like 30 minutes, but this is slightly longer. So enjoy all the extra research and knowledge that Vic is bringing to the table.
Yeah, thanks, Soph. Oh my gosh, this is so good.
You look amazing. Holy shit, I can't believe we dressed the same.
If you could see this now, honestly. So I text Soph. I was like, this is going to be an Olympic special. Soph, can you dress up as either an athlete or a French person? And we both turned up wearing the same thing. This is...
I don't have much sports gear, so I was
neither. Yeah.
What on earth am I going to wear? And we've both turned up with black berets.
I wanted to wear a swimsuit with goggles, but couldn't find it.
It would have been so much better.
Next time, next Olympics. In 4 years' time, I will. Yeah.
Oh
yeah.
my God, that would have been iconic if you'd worn goggles and a swimsuit.
Also, have you seen the Instagram post today?
Our one?
Yes.
No. Wait, what did we do?
Speaking of goggles.
Oh, yes. Sorry, yes.
I was like, Soph's going to kill me.
Nah, I think that's so funny. Also, for anyone that's like, what are you talking about? Basically, it's quite weird dressing as a French person when I feel Italian. I just got back from my Italian holiday.
You're so cultured, babe.
You know, I'm basically European these days.
Yeah.
I do feel like lipstick is not something that suits my face. And also, when I was putting it on this morning, it took me like 15 minutes. And I just thought,
I don't have time for that shit. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have time. But also, it's so hard to do well. And I feel like I always see girls wearing epic lipstick. And now I'm going to be like, you found respect.
It's like, I feel like I would wipe my face or like rub my mouth and have it smeared all up on my cheek, and no one tell me.
I kept like trying to put it on and then I would mess it up. Then I'd use my finger to wipe it, but then I'd put red shit on the top of I was like, oh, this is so hard. I don't know what it is, but I think it also accentuates the moustache, like as soon as you've got lipstick on, all of a sudden I was like, wow, it's just very...
But you look so chic.
No, but it's only because it's dark. In the natural light, I look like I've had a 24-hour bender.
Everything looks better in the dark.
Also, I'm broadcasting. I love that I always make it out like we're in the studio. It's just such habit from working in radio, from Shoreditch House. And they've got this little podcast studio, but the lights go off every 10 minutes. So I'm going to have to keep getting up and turning them on. Sorry about that. No, but the Instagram post.
Yes.
Which you mentioned, which people might be like, what are you talking about? Goggles, swimsuit.
Go
I'm
check
a bit
it out.
Confused. So I just got back from Italy. Buongiorno. Grazie mille.
Here she goes. Goes to Italy once.
I know. At the airport, I was like, grazie. Oh my God, I can't be that person.
Get out of the taxi in London and you're like, merci. That's French. Yeah.
But the first time was 2 years ago. We went with friends and it was like a really stressful holiday for me because I just didn't plan it at all, had no emergency fund, had to take all this money out of my investments while I was the whole thing was just ridiculous.
I remember sitting at prep with you. I've never seen someone so stressed when they're about to go lie on a beach in Europe. It was
well, it wasn't really a holiday for me. And now I look back in hindsight having actually had a holiday and I'm like, that's what they're like. That's what they're meant to be like. You're not meant to be stressing every time you swipe your card, or because in your head it's like you've already spent that money because you've planned for it and you know your budget. So every time you're buying stuff, you feel fine about it. Whereas when we were in Italy the first time, I was just like, I remember, this is so embarrassing to admit, but I remember when we got back to London and everyone had sent Splitwise. And I was like, I avoided it for so long because I was just like, oh my God, I can't believe I have to pay more money. It was ridiculous.
That is the worst thing about a group holiday is the after payments.
Particularly when you don't really drink wine or smoke cigarettes and you're splitting bills. But anyway, this post on Instagram, I wrote a blog while I was there and no joke, I was sitting in the most beautiful part of the world in a sunbed, because you know how you have to pay for them over there. You've got to pay like sometimes 150, 200 euro just to lie on a sunbed. It's ridiculous.
Which I find so strange coming from New Zealand, where the beach is free for everyone and then you have to pay to lie on the beach. Like, it roughs me up so much. And I've fought with the owners of restaurants and the wait staff.
How embarrassing.
I know.
What
and then I'm like, I'll
say?
just put my towel down here then on the ground. And they're like, no, sorry. It's like they actually own sections of the beach, so you can't.
Yeah. We decided, and this is like what I wrote. I wrote a blog basically at this specific place because it was one of those days where I knew my budget and I knew that I couldn't, sorry, the light, one sec. I knew that I couldn't afford to eat at this place, but I wanted to spend the day there. So rather than, I found out that it was like 30 euro or 35 euro just to sit there and sunbathe. So I bought all my own snacks and everything. And I had like olives that I was like eating out of my bag and like shoving bread in my mouth like subtly and people were like, do you want anything? And I'm like, no,
I've been here all day. I'm not hungry at all.
But like technically that's allowed, you know. Anyway, this Instagram post and the blog that I wrote was at this particular restaurant while I was just reflecting on the fact that like I'd done this holiday so much better than I had 2 years ago. I was able to enjoy myself, actually like had planned and saved and wasn't stressing out while I was there. I was able to relax. And so I just started writing this little blog and we put it up on the website yesterday, I think. But the Instagram post that went out is... It's like videos from us in Italy 2 years ago versus now. And there's like these videos.
Bless our social media girl, Bella. She was like, Vic, do you have any videos of Soph in Italy? And I was like, I was literally scrolling and pissing myself sitting there at my desk. I was like, just like reminiscing. It's actually quite a fun therapeutic thing to do, is like go back through your camera roll and just like look at your past photos. I was just like, oh my gosh, it was so funny. Yeah.
There was this video of me in goggles, like full on big goggles in the pool. Like
kind of reminds me of Hugh Grant in Notting Hill when he goes to the cinema with the snorkeling mask on.
What a compliment. That's iconic.
So good.
Anyway, I must say, all in all, if anyone here is like listening and thinking, oh God, like, you know, every time I go on holiday, I'm stressed, or like, and actually one of the biggest things that I think I learned, particularly actually on this one, was going with someone who had a different budget to me and how to navigate that, because you're always going to be on holiday with friends or family who can't afford or can afford things that you can or can't. And it was a really cool experience where I was with my boyfriend and he's like very open about talking about money. I have a boyfriend. And we spoke heaps about money, about like on the plane over there, we wrote we went through our daily budget. What did we value? What did we actually want to spend money on? And
I'm so proud of you.
I know, like even thanks for him, obviously buying cigarettes. He was like, I've got to have 10 euros for cigarettes. And I'm like, well, that's not part of the joint money.
Yeah. Like, sorry, no.
Like, sorry, but no.
That's coming from your personal account. But it's also good to just almost not clear the air, but like have those conversations. So then it's not like every time you're buying something or every time you're spending money, it's like, we haven't talked about it, or like, oh God, is this, just like set the playing field and then you can enjoy the rest of the holiday, I think is a really, really mature thing to do. So well done.
It was the first time I'd ever been on holiday with anyone, let alone a boyfriend that I spoke about money with. And it was very refreshing. Even things like we hired a Vespa for a couple of days and there was these really cute, chic, actual Vespas that were like baby blue, pink, white, like so cool. And then there were these horrible like,
I would have been like the baby blue
on the
one.
Health and safety front. Yes, same. But interestingly, I was like, do you know what? I don't really care that much about the scooter. And so I said to him, I was like, oh, look, I'm happy to go for the cheap one. And he was like, I kind of want to have the Vespa.
I'm pretty sure I saw a pale blue one and some photos of yours.
Yeah, you did. Because that's the one we went for. And
you've got to gram that shit if you're paying more for a pale blue scooter.
Totally. It was actually quite funny. At one point we pulled up to this, we just picked it up. And we pulled up to this beach and there was this couple there that were definitely the Instagram, couple. They had their drone and their big giant camera and stuff. And we were trying to take a photo of ourselves on the scooter. And then they were like, oh, do you want us to take a photo? And then they start unpacking the drone. And we're going to take a drone shot of us on the scooter. We sat there for about 10 minutes. I was like, feel really awkward. I don't know if we need the drone photo, but now they're unpacking it all. Like, anyway, it was that it didn't end up working for whatever reason, but I was just
I was like, that would be quite cool.
It would be quite cool. I was like, actually, maybe this would be fun to have.
I also think that's really important conversation around like saving for long-term goals versus short-term goals. Like saving for a holiday, which might be in like 6 months or a year or a couple of years, versus saving for more long-term goals, maybe buying a house, retiring, that kind of thing. And I think it's really important to have those short-term goals because, I don't know, we all operate in a world of instant gratification and we want, we want something near-term that we can be motivated to achieve. And so I think it's really important to also reward yourself for saving and putting money aside, consistently and regularly for a short-term goal as well as a long-term goal, but it's really important. And you can have both. It's not like you should put all your money away for future you and not live life. There's definitely a balance.
Well, I think that's kind of what I felt for the first time because it was the first time that I had almost guilt-free spent money. I know that sounds like a really weird thing to say because obviously it wasn't. I was still spending money, but it was because I had planned for it and I knew what I was spending each day. And if I went over it, I would pull back the following. And also I was like really aware of the fact that my boyfriend doesn't have a job right now. And so for him, it's like, and actually there was this really awkward time where we decided we'd do 2 nice dinners or lunches at each location. So we went to 2 different spots in Italy. And so we had dinner, we would go out for dinner, like more, cheap, normal amounts, but that we would have 2 kind of splash outs. And so one of them that I booked was at this amazing place that we'd scooted past or like something. And I was like, oh, that looks really cool. And we were both like, that looks amazing. So I went on the website and I booked it and it said a minimum spend of €70 per person. And I was like, oh, that's quite a lot. And that's our daily budget. So like that's probably pushing it. And I would be stressed out if I was there without a job. So I said to him, I was like, look, I'm really happy to kind of like split that. Like I'll pay for the half of yours that is, like the minimum spend or whatever, which was kind of a funny conversation to have because it was like, I've never been in that situation before where I've been slightly more financially stable than someone I'm with. I'm always the one that has less money or is on a lower budget. And you always feel so anxious and awkward, like you're ruining the holiday, because if everyone's having to adjust themselves to you, like that's how I've always felt. I know that's not what people feel being around me. Well, I hope, but I've always had that. And so being in a situation where I knew that's probably how he was feeling and I didn't want him to, but equally I really wanted to go to this place. So I was like, I'm really happy to pay the difference because that's something we get to both enjoy. But anyway, we turned up and it was like fine dining. And I was like so embarrassed and awkward and wanted to leave straight. I honestly, what went through my head was like, I'm going to fake that I'm sick and that we can't come anymore. And then hopefully they won't charge us the minimum. Like I felt really uncomfortable because I was like, this is so unfair going to a place that's this expensive when we have a budget. We're not in like
And you didn't even enjoy it.
Nah, well, basically what we ended up doing is not drinking alcohol. So we didn't have any alcohol. And it was the biggest hack ever because we were able to eat all of this beautiful food, be an amazing location, but just not have a €25 cocktail,
and not be hungover the next day, which is great.
It was honestly, we ended up spending less than what we had at some like more cheap places where we'd been drinking. And it was like, okay, this is a hack.
But overall, did you have a good time?
Oh, it was so good.
And you wore sunscreen?
I did have one moment where I
had a Zoom call with Soph and I was like, oh, wow. Someone got a bit excited there in Italy.
It's also so unfair that that's coming from you because you don't even wear any. You just like
do.
look like a lobster the day after and you're like, it's fine, we'll go to tan.
It's fine. I know.
But sorry, just to wrap up this because I know that we probably have talked about this for too long, but I've realised it sounds privileged to be like, my Italian holiday, and to be putting out like, Instagram posts or blogs on it. But I just want to preface the whole reason I wanted to do it was because I also wanted to be proud of being able to enjoy that. And everyone that listens to this podcast or knows the content we've put out knows that this is not like normal for me to be able to go and splash out and spend money on things. But it was one of those moments where I looked back at the last couple of years of how much I've learned and how much I've learned to be better with my money and think about things and have open conversations. And there's no way I would have ever got to that place had it not been for, the money reset and all the things that we've done through the curve. And when you commented on that post on Instagram being like, proud of you, I honestly got like a bit teary. I was like, wow, I didn't realize I needed some words of affirmation.
Good to know. Okay.
But yeah, if anyone would like to see some of the other tips or things that I learned, we'll put the link to that in the show notes of the podcast.
And you genuinely looked happier, and you can tell. So yeah, proud of you, Soph.
Thanks. Cute moment.
So speaking of the money reset, we actually have the next intake starting on the 1st of August, so in a couple of days. And so there's a few more days to get your seat in the Curve classroom for this course. It always sells out, so please don't leave it to the last minute. And also this intake, we're very, very proud. It's actually sponsored by Tempo, which is an investing app for New Zealand students that has removed all the guesswork when it comes to investing and tried to make it much more simple and easy for all of us. So we thank them for sponsoring the Money Reset.
Thanks, Tempo.
Now, on to the juicy stuff. So, yes, the reason we're dressed up like Parisians, French people, is because the Olympics started this weekend, which is very exciting. Did you watch the opening ceremony? Oh, no, you were on a plane that was cancelled.
I actually watched some of it when I got home. It was still on.
Yeah.
I saw that man dressed all in blue and like and he had an orange beard. I was like, what's happening? And it came in, that was the first thing I saw.
I'm sorry, this might be controversial, but whoever watched the opening ceremony, me and my friend were sitting there going, what are we watching? It was honestly, and then she made a cup of tea, came back and sat down, and she saw this guy in blue with fruit all around him, singing, and she was
quite bizarre, wasn't it?
She was like, what is this? It was honestly such a mishmash. I don't know, yeah. There's probably a deep meaning to it all, which I didn't quite get, but the silver horse riding through the water, that was pretty amazing. Lady Gaga as well. I was Googling, is Lady Gaga French? I was like, no, she's not. Anyway.
So apparently they know about it 8 years in advance. So that's been planned for like 8 years.
Oh, totally. You have to build stadiums. You have to build like arenas, roads. Yeah, you get told very, very well in advance.
But just the idea is like of sort of showcasing like Parisian fashion and art and music and the story of their culture. And it's like a stage challenge for anyone that's from New Zealand.
Yeah.
It's like a stage challenge times a million.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it was quite amazing. And on the river and everything, it was quite amazing. But the price tag to host the Olympic Games has increased so much over the years, and what cities spend, like there's so much they have to put into like transport, infrastructure, all of that. And there has never been an Olympic Games that's made a profit. So it is literally, I guess, a bit of a show and tell for the city. And admittedly, France and Paris did look absolutely beautiful last night.
I thought the whole point of getting that much tourism would be to get an influx economically.
Yeah. So there is 10 to 15 million visitors estimated to come to visit the Olympics in France this year. Like that influx alone is insane. But from a like business standpoint, there's less people watching the Olympic Games now, despite increased coverage across the world. That's mainly down to like streaming providers and stuff, and just a bit of a lack of interest. There's so many other sports now that are dedicated to specific sports like rugby and soccer. And sponsors are willing to pay so much for this exposure, but they get smaller levels of exposure now. So I'm going to run through some numbers.
So do you mean when you say smaller levels of exposure, is that all down to the idea that less people watch it than ever before?
Yeah. Yeah. Even though there's more sports, there's more events, there's more people attending in person, but the coverage is a lot less. So if we looked at this, so the last time that Paris held the Olympics was in 1924, and so that was exactly 100 years ago.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, and there was 126 events across 17 sports. This year, 329 events across 32 different sports. So a huge, huge, huge increase. And yes, you're right. The economic benefit to France is expected to be about $11 billion. So there is a huge, huge, huge economic benefit. 300,000 people attended the opening ceremony in the weekend. The ticket price for that was about €3,000. So huge, huge, huge numbers. there's 190 nations that compete. So the one thing I noticed watching the opening ceremony was kind of how, I don't know the word, like collegial? You know, it was like everyone's coming together, all these nations in one place. It was a real moment of, not world peace, sounds a bit cliche, but like of everyone coming together for sport. You know, sport just brings people together in such an interesting way. Anyway.
It's true, actually. And often I like really, this is like maybe a little bit questionable to say, but I sometimes find when people are obsessed with sport, I'm a little bit like, really?
I know, yeah.
Sport? But you're right, seeing the whole world and also people train their whole lives to get there. And for me, it felt like there was almost like this slight feeling of Hunger Games energy.
Yes, yeah.
But then also a reminder of actually how small the world is in a weird way. Like the idea that we can all come together and have common interests and support and
be in one city and
sport, it's like there's no language. You don't need a language to understand it. Anyone anywhere in the world can watch it and see it and take part, even if you can't communicate in words. And I think there's something kind of beautiful about that.
Yeah. And so with the games now being bigger and you've got more athletes, you've got more events, like that leads to bigger venues, bigger construction costs, more accommodation for all the athletes. And like there's all these massive stadiums that get built in these cities for the Olympics, and then they kind of sit idle for years and years after that. Like Tokyo, the poor city, building all these incredible stadiums, then COVID hit. And then, and then they delayed it a year.
Insurance on that? Like what happens?
There would be certain elements of insurance, but also the economic benefit for the city is that everyone comes and they spend money in retailers and restaurants and, accommodation and stuff. So I kind of felt for Tokyo a bit then. But one thing I wanted to mention was so they did the opening ceremony in the Seine, the River Seine, in the middle of Paris. They spent $1.5 billion alone on cleaning up that river to stop sewage and everything coming into that river, to make it, swimmable and all of that. Just on the river alone, $1.5 billion, and it still looked
But also, that's kind of amazing that river got the TLC that it probably needed from a cleanup perspective.
Totally.
Don't you think it also then makes you think about stuff like you can find the money to do things. You can find the money. When you hear $1.5 billion being spent on a river being cleaned for the Olympics, it's like, hold on a second. We could find the money to do all the things the world needs.
Definitely.
If we all banded together, It's like, it's just so interesting what like people open their wallets for.
Yeah.
But can I just ask you before, I know you're about to share some other very interesting stats, but just quickly, like you said, there's been no countries that have financially benefited from having the Olympics there.
Sorry, no, there's no Olympic Games that has generated a profit. So there's a company that runs the Olympic Games called the International Olympic Committee, I think it is. Yeah, and they own the franchise, and then they have sponsors, they have all of these incomings and outgoings, and they've never made a profit. So a city, it's hard to tell because what the flow on benefit is economically, like estimates of $11 billion in terms of people coming to the city.
So sorry. So the cities do financially benefit. That's right. Sorry, I fully misheard that.
Sorry, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, if we look at some of the Olympic partner sponsors, so Airbnb paid $500 million to sponsor the next 5 Olympics, which I don't even know if they've got the money to pay for anymore.
How much? 500 million.
500 million. Visa paid 100 million just for this Olympics to be the exclusive sponsor. So there are some big sponsorship deals going down for these brands, and the thing is, a lot of these are US brands. So you've got Coca-Cola, you've got Procter & Gamble, Airbnb, Visa. So they have spent, all these key sponsors have spent about $2 billion on sponsorship. So it's a big, if you think of the television coverage, the millions and millions of people that tuned in to watch the opening ceremony, there's definitely, it's quite amazing, like you say, that people band together to achieve things.
I can't believe I misheard such a crucial part of that.
No, it's all right.
Delivery.
But I'm gonna do a wrap up once we know like actual figures and stuff. There'll be figures coming out. I'll do an actual wrap up at the end of the Olympics, and we'll have a much better idea of kind of, because these are all estimates, because
even like thinking, this is maybe a weird analogy, but you know, Glastonbury, Charlie XCX, all the people that were there, I imagine would have a huge influx of like people listening to their music, people buying this, that, blah, 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 you know. I mean, like that song, Charlie, what's the one that's like, I got the apple, that's something, the corn, you know, and it's like all of a sudden everywhere. And so like financially the flow and effects of the Olympics, of just being in the city and people being there, or FOMO of all these people seeing them go to Paris and blah, blah, blah.
It's even like, even the TV coverage and seeing the city, that would spark interest in people being like, it might not be a trip straight away, but it might be like, oh yes, we have to take the 3 kids and my husband to Paris at some point. It's so beautiful, you know? So it's hard to know what the direct benefits are, because they might flow on for years and years and years. And that is the whole point of the Olympics, is to highlight the city. Yeah, it definitely highlighted Paris for me. I was like, oh, it looks so pretty. Anyway, speaking of actually tourism in Europe, Soph, there's been a huge backlash in tourists in Europe this summer. There's been protests in Parma telling tourists to stay away. There's been people being squirted with water in Barcelona in like squares.
I'd be stoked if I'd been squirted with water. It was so bloody hot. I'd be like, again,
in my mouth. Sorry.
All over my body. Honestly, it was 34 degrees. I was like, just would linger in gelato shops buying ice cream just to stand under their fan. Like, it was so hot.
So good. Well, European countries have hosted about 700 million visitors this year. 700 million. Like, that is just like infamous. Anyway, there's been huge protests because it's led to sky-high rents. It's led to people complaining of like public transport that's buckling, medieval towns that are almost being Disneyified is what they call it. Like, you know, Dubrovnik in Croatia is like, it's lost its specialty. Water supplies are being depleted, and also a lot of antisocial behaviour by Brits mainly. So there's huge protests, and tourism brings 800 million euros into Europe's economy in this year alone. Like, that is a lot of money. So for these people to stand up and protest, like, I totally get where they're coming from, but I guess they want more of a more premium tourist, or someone, you know, that doesn't have antisocial behavior, you know, that spends on luxury items, you know, just a bit more of a...
But do they, or is it like...
There's two things. So it's like having a bit more of a luxurious tourist that comes and spends money and gives them the economic benefit without, you know, it's more quality over quantity, versus or there's options of paying taxes, like a tourist tax to come visit certain parts.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, but it's Spain that's really kicking up the most of the fuss, and they're the second most visited country in Europe. So they had 85.
What's number one?
France, which is
really?
Appropriate. Wow. So they had 85 million foreign visitors last year. Like, for a country, that's insane. But I think there's a fine balance between pissing off tourists and no one comes, to having tourism that helps fuel the economy. And they're all blaming also Airbnb. There's been a big boycott against Airbnb, and there's the government in Barcelona is saying that it's going to close down, you know, things like 10,000 Airbnb style apartments. So there is things going on. But
I'm quite conflicted about the Airbnb thing, because we stayed in a hotel for half of it and then a Airbnb for the second. And on one hand, I saw this beautiful Italian family. I met the woman whose house it is. I was like, oh, it's really beautiful that she is, you know, renting her house out to us. And so I was thinking, this must be like quite good money for her, you know, be able to do 5 nights. And, you know, it wasn't super cheap. It wasn't super expensive, but like, cool opportunity. If I could do that with my flat, I would, you know, just to earn some extra money. But I don't know how to explain it. I was thinking about this when Airbnb first was a thing. It was so great because it was definitely cheaper than hotels.
Yeah.
Now it's definitely not. And by the time we were leaving, the amount of instructions on like the garbage and the this and the that, I was kind of like, isn't the whole point of Airbnb that you use? I don't know. It was just, I know that sounds really pretentious. It was more just like, I think the experience has changed both for the traveler and the person hosting, and maybe what it sounds like also for the countries where it's being used a lot, because it's like there probably aren't even any locals in the places.
Exactly.
Because they've all left to rent their houses out, which is the whole reason people go to experience the culture. And I don't know, I'm like conflicted.
I think there's a balance between bringing in money for the economy but pissing off the locals, or not even having a local experience because there's only tourists around.
Yeah.
But I also think Airbnb isn't to blame as much maybe as people think, because it's a platform that has allowed all these smaller mum and dad apartment or homeowners to rent their property on a global scale and get a global audience, whereas staying in a hotel, which is sometimes probably just a big corporate that then pockets the money and profits and might go back to America or outside of Europe, so it doesn't really stay in the country or in the economy. So I think there's pluses and minuses of both. I think there's definitely a way around it so that you don't get this unruly behavior. You don't get, public transport that can't handle it. You don't get housing that's become unaffordable for locals and all of that. So, but it's interesting that this summer in particular, with $800 billion being brought into the economy, and if we look back pre-COVID, that was about $500 billion. So it's nearly 40% increase to pre-COVID levels. So we're well back to normal and above. So I can totally see when you've got a 40% increase, it's just like I can see why locals are complaining.
Well, even being near Positano and the Amalfi Coast it was like being at a festival. Like I wanted to see Positano because I was like, oh, it's Positano.
Yeah.
And I spent 2 hours just wandering around, and I was so overwhelmed with the amount of people. It was like, it was ridiculous. And the same with the Amalfi. We scooted through it, didn't even stop because I was just like, oh.
Yeah.
It was like quite
it's like Santorini
in
Greece. It's like beautiful, but you go there and it's just like seas of people. It's like I remember going to Christ the Redeemer in Brazil, and I was like, oh my gosh, I've always wanted to go see this, and like climbed up the hill, got to the top, the views are amazing. And I couldn't even get a photo of the Christ Redeemer because there was so many people. And I was like, wow, it's so that like Instagram versus reality, It's like...
Are the locals complaining about the fact that there's so many people and it's basically ruining their land and their transport and their ability to live there? Or is it that... I'm just trying to think, would it be like spreading out the amount of flights that go to a country, or the amount of Airbnbs in each location that are allowed to, do you know what I mean? Like, is there a way of restricting?
If you restrict supply, then that leads to price increases, and therefore that probably weeds out a lot of people because they can't afford. If you've only got 10 houses to choose from in Amalfi Coast, for example, versus 10,000, it's all about supply and demand. And so, I think it's like then people will be like, actually, I'll go somewhere else. I won't go to the Amalfi with everyone else. I might go to Puglia. I might visit somewhere else, and kind of spreading that tourism around. I also think this is probably a bit of an anomaly in that there is a lot of backlog of the 3 years of COVID that people have saved up for holidays or weren't able to travel overseas, and so are now spending. And that's why we've seen that 40% increase on pre-COVID levels, which is crazy. So
it's fascinating though, and I'd love to hear. Maybe we don't have time now, but it would be really interesting to do another episode on this, because I'd love to hear your thoughts more on like a macroeconomic standpoint with like different levers or things that could be done that would benefit both the locals and the economy and the world. Because you don't want locals not being able to get on their buses because they're overcrowded with Americans or annoying New Zealanders.
Or it's like things like the Olympics, like have events where you've got the increased transport, you've got the increased security, you've got the increased staff to manage that influx, and then people leave. I think it's like not being prepared or not having the right support systems in place to manage that many people. Do you know what I mean? I think there's an element of that as well. And like Barcelona's holding the America's Cup in October, and there's news articles that they're, really excited about that because it's something they can prepare for. They've got, it is a bit more of a premium, tourist in that respect. So I don't know, there's elements around it, but yeah, I'll go do my research and get back to you on this one.
Yeah, it's so interesting. And I also feel like I hope that I wasn't ruining the summer for heaps of Italian locals, like that sucks.
I know, it's quite sad.
I mean, I do think actually for me, one of the things that we did was chose less busy places. So we could hear Italians all around us. It was like we didn't go to the super touristy spots. And maybe that's just like something that we could all think about when traveling. It's like pick the places that aren't super overrun or classically spoken about because A, you'll have a better experience, B, it's not affecting like local life, but then also you're still spending in
or go in
the economy. I don't know.
Off-peak seasons, go in May or October or and that's another thing that will happen is because the prices will get so expensive in July and August, and then people will start going in May and October, and so it'll evens things out that way. But it's all about supply and demand. At the end of the day, everything is all economics. We've also had earnings season. So this is where companies report their financial results. So the 3 months to the end of June, and then now this month they start reporting their financial results. And the stock market, the US stock market had its worst week last week in nearly 2 years. So it was down about 3%, and that's all off the back of...
Oh my God, is this the politics?
No, this is all off Tesla. Tesla in particular, really bad results. Profits were down 40%. This is the fourth time it has missed expectations, what the market was expecting it to deliver. This is the fourth time it's missed those expectations. So people are getting pretty pissed off. Yeah, shares were down about 14% last week. But again, this is like a 3-month view. People have to this really annoys me when you're investing for the long term and then they release, short-term 3-month results, financial results, and people get all up in arms. It's like, oh my gosh, bigger picture. Do you think Tesla will have more market share of electric vehicles and continue to grow and dominate that space? If yes.
If anything, it makes me think, what a stunning purchasing opportunity.
Exactly, Sophie.
Since when is Tesla ever down 14%? Hello, exactly. Tesla on sale if you're interested in the company.
When Tesla does have big dips like this, it is usually, and I'm not saying this always happens, but followed by a bit of a big rebound. So yeah, not saying it's going to happen, but anyway. Spotify as well had a really good result. It's most profitable quarter ever, and that's all because we're now paying more in premium Spotify fees, which is great. So that's going...
I'm also fine with that though, because I love Spotify and I think it's a great service and they do. So I'm I'm not annoyed about it.
Yeah, no, it's definitely something you just kind of suck up. It obviously hasn't turned people away. There's now nearly 300 million people paying the premium subscription price of Spotify and 400 million free users. So they've got a sweet few people listening to music. Alphabet, which is Google, they had a really good result, mainly due to their search and their cloud. It's up 20% this year, which is great. And they made $85 billion in revenue in 3 months. 85.
Oh my God.
I can't, honestly, these numbers just make my mind boggle. Some other headlines that you might be interested in, Sophie Horright, is that the pound, so we had a change of Prime Minister here in the UK. We spoke about it a few podcasts ago. Well, people seem to be loving it because the pound has been the best performing currency of a major market this year. So, and it's all around, people are hoping that finally, because we've had a change in leadership, the party, so it's gone from Conservative to Labour, that this might be the political stability that the country needs. So yeah, best performing currency this year.
It's amazing.
It's the strongest level it's been, so the highest it's been since 2016 when Brexit was announced, which is quite incredible.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you know what's great about that for us?
Yes, here we go. I think you're about to take the words out of my mouth.
Oh, no, you do it.
Oh, so February last year, if you had £100 and you transferred that back into New Zealand dollars, you would have had 190 New Zealand dollars. Now, if you do it, you'll have $220 Kiwi. An extra $30, yeah, which is great.
So does that mean we should be sending money back? Should we maybe if we're earning pounds,
if you've got spare cash, or say you'd moved back to New Zealand and you still had pounds in the UK and you'd been like, when's a good time? I'm not saying like it is a better time than it was last year. It could get even better. It's like the stock market. You don't really know what's going to happen, but it's all kind of relative. And if you're sitting there going, hey, actually, if I transfer money back now to New Zealand or a lot of other currencies, to be honest, because the pound's been so strong, then you might get a bit of a windfall, a little windfall, an extra $30 when I go back for summer in New Zealand.
That's amazing.
Quite helpful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So, I loved this episode. Should we dress up every week?
I agree. Let's do it.
I feel so much more fun and fruity and just a bit like...
I thought you were going to say flirty. You do with your red lipstick.
I kind of do feel flirty. Don't you think I look like quite chic and Parisian?
Yeah, you do. Yeah, maybe we should dress up every episode. Maybe I'll do a bit of a Bridget Jones and just tell you to dress up and then me not dress up.
That's funny. That's actually really funny. Great content. This morning when my flatmate threw the beret into my room, because I messaged everyone being like, who's got anything French I can wear? The excitement I got getting my little dress up and like my hat made me think it's my birthday in a month. I'm going to do a themed birthday.
Do it.
I'm going to make everyone dress up.
Oh my God. Fun.
Okay. Well, I loved it, Vic. Thanks for a really good Curve Weekly.
No worries.
I feel like I learned heaps. Yeah, it was great. And if anyone wants to join for the Money Reset, you've got literally like a day or two. Yeah. So
come join us. Come and save money for your next holiday.
Do you know what? It's not even just save. It's more like learn how to just plan and use your money better. That's what it is. That's what it's been for me. It's not just like a saving hack. It's like redistributing of my funds in a much more clever way.
And we've had a lot of questions of people being like, but I don't even have any money left over at the end of my paycheck. Like I'm in negative and I'm eating into my savings or whatever. I don't even have savings. And honestly, I just want to go and like grab them and hug them and bring them into the classroom, because I'm like, oh my goodness, there are so many lessons on, it's not just about cutting back. Like we earn and spend. It's about earning more and spending less. Like there's two sides of that equation. And so we go through like everything, and it's just what frustrates me so much about a lot of courses or budgets or everything out there. It's like cut back, cut back, cut back. It's like there's also the other side to that equation.
But also I was in a position where I had exactly the same. I was so in the negative. It was bad. It was really bad. And I think that it's almost like what's kind of ironic is it's almost those are the people that really need to know these things more so than when you have more money. I mean, I think it's great to learn when you're feeling stretched, because it means that when you do eventually earn more, you've got such a clever way of making your money go further, and you know how it's like that saying you said ages ago, I don't think ever really hit home until recently. Like if you don't know how to manage $100, you won't know how to manage $100 million. And I was like, it's very true.
Anyway, hope to see you on the 1st of August in the Money Reset.
Yes. Okay, bye everyone. Have a good week.
Bye. Thank you so much for listening to the Curve Weekly. Make sure you hit the subscribe button to stay up to date with all the money, biz and stock market news. And if you like what you heard, we would love a review. Thank you.
Yes, we would love a review. But if you did hate it, please, don't leave one if you hate it. No, but in all seriousness, could you please leave a review? Because it really helps other people find our cute little podcast.
And we hope you have a good week and see you next Monday.
Bye.
Bye. Sweet. Yeah. See you next Tuesday. Lol. See you next Tuesday. I mean Monday.